Hello everybody, my name is Nemo and welcome back to another Magic video. Today we're taking a look at Mind Maze. Let's go ahead and check it out here. Sort by cost, because that's the way I prefer it. So we're on 22 lands here. This is a very aggressive deck, and it's not like Evanescence Glory, which is also an aggressive deck. But Evanescence Glory has like a couple of 5-drops, some good 4-drops, stuff like that. This deck has mostly just 1, 2s and 3s, and has like 2 4-drops and 1 5-drop that you don't really ever intend on casting for 5 mana. So you can definitely run this deck on 22 lands, because that's how lean and mean the curve is. So we've got Jace's Phantasm here, a 1-cost 1/1 flyer, and it has an ability that doesn't actually ever trigger. I've seen it happen once, I think. But mostly just a 1/1 flyer for 1 is very, very good in an aggressive deck. So that's why I want it there, and it's an illusion, so your lords and your images, copying lords, can make it bigger, and that's just really good. A Phantasmal Bear is a 1-cost 2/2, and when it becomes the target of a spell or ability, sacrifice it. This is a theme with this deck, where your illusions, whenever they get targeted, have to be sacrificed. In the case of this guy, it's a very good trade-off for its extra 1 power and 1 toughness than most normal creatures, or at least 1 extra toughness or 1 extra power, because like most 1-drops that don't have any other ability would be like a 1/2 or 2/1. This guy is 2/2, which is very strong, but he has this ability. But that's a very nice trade-off for being a little bit bigger than most 1-drops. Because, I mean, who cares if they target your 1-cost guy? They have to use a spell, so that makes a really good 1-cost guy if they have to use a spell to get rid of it, you know? So I'm totally fine with that trade-off right there. This card is really, really good. We've got 3 of those. We've got a Veiled Sentry here. It's a 1-cost dude. Well, it's an enchantment, but it becomes a dude. And this card is actually very good. When the game had just come out, I wasn't that sure about this card, just because sometimes, I don't know, they could play around it or something. But, I mean, if they're playing around this card, then you're probably in a good spot anyways. I mean, even if you get a 1/1 out of it, it's a 1-cost card. I mean, and getting a 1/1 illusion is pretty good most of the time, just because your lords are going to make it bigger and everything. And sometimes you can really get somebody, like against Chant of the Moldai. I got a 8/8 out of it once, and that's really nice. And then they unsummon their huge guy that they played, which triggered this dude, and they quit. So, very nice card there. Unsummon is just the tempo. Just great tempo. Not only can, it get rid of their blockers for a turn, so you can smash in with your whole army, and it usually is enough to, like, seal the deal. But it can also save your lords for just 1 mana from being killed, so it's just really good. We've got 4 of those. So we've got Phantasmal Image, but I should really talk about the next card first. We've got Lord of the Unreal here. He's the lord of this deck, obviously. And he's a 2-cost 2/2, and all your illusions creatures get +1/+1 and have hexproof. Hexproof is really nice to give guys that if they get targeted, they die, So the hexproof totally negates that, and this is just a really good card. And we've got 4 lords here. That's just insane. Now we have 4 of those. And even better, we've got 4 Phantasmal Images, which are even better cards than Lord of the Unreal. They can copy your Lord of the Unreal, and they have the ability that when they get targeted, they have to be sacrificed. But the nice part about this is if you copy a Lord of the Unreal with Phantasmal Image, then all the illusion creatures get hexproof, and this guy is still always an illusion, even if it's copying something. So he gives himself hexproof when you've copied the Lord of the Unreal with it, which is insane. Also, I mean, you don't have to copy your Lord of the Unreal. There are plenty of other good targets in other people's decks. Stuff with onto the battlefield abilities are very nice targets, because even if they then deal with your Phantasmal Image, you've gotten the bonus out of it. So just a really nice card to have. I played a game against Hunting Season, where they got their 7-cost Wasp thing out that is a flying 2/2 and brings in 4 flying 1/1s that all have Death Touch. And I copied that twice with Phantasmal Image and unsummoned theirs. That was hilarious. But yeah, stuff like that can happen, and this is just a really good card. And it's a really good counter to stuff like Unfinished Business, getting out a huge dude early into the game. So, very nice. We've got Snapcaster Mage here. 2-cost 1/2/1 with Flash, and you can return target instant or sorcery card in your graveyard gains flashback. You can recast that. I mean, I've had a game where I had 5 mana up, and I had Snapcaster Mage on the board, and I had Unsummon in my hand, and a Counterspell in my graveyard, and they played something, and I was like, yeah, Unsummon Snapcaster Mage, play Snapcaster Mage, give my Counterspell flashback, play Counterspell on your thing, and you die the next turn. Stuff like that is just hilarious with this deck, and really, really nice. So we got Krovikan Mist here. We only have one of these, so thank Jeebus they only gave us one of these, because man, having 4 of these, 4 Lords and 4 Phantasmal Images would just be insane. But yeah, he's as powerful and as tough as you have other illusions and himself on the board. So he by himself he's just a 1/1, and then however many other illusions there are on the board. That's how more powerful this guy is going to be. Just really good in an aggressive deck like this. We got Gossamer Phantasm, 2 cost, 2/1 flyer, and he has that same ability that the bear had. But 2/1 flyer for 2 mana is very, very good when you've got a whole ton of lords to make it even bigger, and you're playing an aggressive deck. We've got 2 counterspells here. This is not a control deck, but counterspell is cheap enough and just broken enough that you should play it anyways. And just a really good card. So there it is. So the 2 cost stuff we're not running. Aether Figment here. It's a 1/1 that can't be blocked. And if you play it for 5 mana, then it's a 3/3 that can't be blocked. I don't want to ever play anything for 5 mana in this deck. So that's off the table. And a 1/1 that can't be blocked for 2 mana is not as good as a 2/1 flyer for 2 mana. Because flying, usually, that means the same thing as can't be blocked. So we've got Incursion Specialist here, which just totally doesn't fit this deck at all. It can't be blocked, I guess, but it's not an illusion, so I don't really care about this dude. And you have to play into him. I mean, if you're holding Counterspell or stuff that you don't necessarily want to use during your turn, like Unsummon or whatever, or you're waiting for a specific time to use it, then you can't trigger his ability, and he's just a 1/3 for 2 mana. That isn't even an illusion. That's just not good. Twin Cast, again, a lot of the stuff that you're casting is stuff that you don't necessarily want to always use. You want to wait for the right time, like Unsummon, Counterspell, stuff like that. You're not being very proactive with those cards. You use them if the situation comes up that they're good. So having Twin Cast to Twin Cast like a Counterspell is just bad. Twin Casting Unsummon can be nice, I suppose. But yeah, most of the stuff that you're playing isn't worth running Twin Cast with, and cards like this, relying on your opponent to cast a spell that you want to Twin Cast is just not a good strategy at all. So yeah, I'm not liking it in this particular deck. We've got Avenizer here. It's basically removal, and then you have to kind of have them block or whatever. It's neat. It's nice, but I don't think this deck needs it. I'm being very aggressive here with this deck, and I don't think I really actually need to deal with their creatures if I can just kill them before it matters, so I'm not running those. We got Illusionary Servant here. It's a 3-cost 3/4 flyer, and again it has this ability here. 3-cost 3/4 flyer is pretty nice. I mean, most flyers for 3 mana are like 2 powered flyers. This one is a 3 power flyer, and to boot it has 4 toughness, which is quite insane. Yeah, just really good. Halcyon Glaze is a 3-cost 4/4 that can only attack. That can only ever attack, and then it can only attack if you play a creature that turn. But you've got plenty of creatures in this deck. You're probably going to be able to trigger this guy. So very, very nice there. Do note that you can't trigger it with another Halcyon Glaze or the other enchantment thing. Let's see what it's called. A Failed Sentry. You can't trigger it with those, but other than that, it's just a really, really powerful card to have. So we've got Frost Breath here. There's actually another card here I would like to discuss with it. You've got Claustrophobia versus Frost Breath. And it's kind of a puzzle in this deck which one you would like to use, which one is more powerful than the other. You definitely don't need more than 2 of these kinds of cards in this deck, because you've also got the 4-pack of Unsummons, which you should definitely run. So It's like, which one is better? Personally, I think they're both really great cards, and they're both about the same power level. But this deck is more of an aggressive deck, and I think Frost Breath suits that a little bit better. This is, a tempo deck, an aggressive deck, and Frost Breath gets rid of 2 blockers in a single turn. You swing it with your stuff. Whereas Claustrophobia is better in the long run, but you don't want to go to the long run, because that's not what this deck really wants to do. And if you do go into a long game, in the scenarios where Claustrophobia is better than Frost Breath, it's probably because you need to deal with something for a longer time. And that's because you don't have a lot of pressure on your opponent. And if you don't have a lot of pressure on your opponent, then what's likely happening is that you're top decking because you're out of stuff to play. And maybe your opponent is also out of stuff to play, I don't know. But if that's the case, then the opponent is likely to top deck something better than whatever you're top decking. Simply because this deck is an aggressive deck, so later game this deck doesn't do as well. So that's why I prefer Claustrophobia. That's why I prefer Frost Breath over Claustrophobia, because the situations where Claustrophobia are better than Frost Breath are situations I don't really want to be in with this deck. So that's kind of what I wanted to say about that. So we got Divination here. Draw 2 cards. It's pretty nice. Even though this is an aggressive deck, I think drawing extra cards is good. And I have had situations where I ran out of stuff to play. So having some extra cards value here, or card advantage, is useful. We've got Phantom Warrior, which we're not playing. I don't really see the point to it, because we've got flyers that are just more powerful for 3 mana than this dude. He is a little bit, he's overcasted for being a 2/2. And can't be blocked, can be a really powerful ability, but not when the creature itself isn't that powerful. You can get bigger with Lords out, but again, flying is almost as good as can't be blocked, and these guys are just way bigger, so I don't really need it. Illusory Angel. Your guys can get really large with your Lords out, and this deck doesn't really have the problem that the Fairy deck can run into, where sometimes you just need something bigger out on the board. So I don't think Illusory Angel is as necessary in this deck as it is in the Fairy deck. Whereas, I'm not saying it's necessary in the Fairy deck, but it can be a useful card in the Fairy deck. In this deck, I just really don't see it. Blind Phantasm is a 2/3 for free, and it also doesn't see it because it's blind. But it's just underwhelming. It's not even a flyer. Staff of the Mind Magus. These cards are bad. Don't run them. End of story. Free cast removal. Free cast counter spells. Those are just 2. Not good enough for this deck. This is not a control deck. Don't really care that much about counterspelling. I'm only running the other counterspells because they're so dirt cheap that they're pretty much broken. 2 cost for a counter anything is ridiculously good, and that's why I'm running them, and not because they fit this deck or anything. It's just that that's how good they are, But you don't need counterspells in this deck, other than that, so we're not running those. We've got a Wistful Thinking. Free cast, sorcery, target player draws 2 cards, then discards 4 cards. This is worse than Mind Rot generally. You're likely not really looking to play this on yourself, although you have that option, I suppose. The idea is that you play it on your opponent when they're at their last 2 cards, but I don't know. Those situations don't always come up, and sometimes an opponent goes from 3 cards to 1 card in their hand, and I just don't really like this card for that reason. And if they're stuck on the last few cards, then that's the turn that I usually want to kill them with this deck, and not play something like Wistful Thinking. But this card is worse than Mind Rot in almost all situations. I know this isn't the black deck, but Mind Rot is already situational at times. So yeah, just my opinion on the card there. Phantasmal Dragon is a 4-cost 5/5 flyer. Also has this ability for 4-cost. I don't really like having a 4-cost that has this ability, but I need another dude that is really, really powerful and has flying, and it is quite expensive for this deck, but yeah, it is a powerful dude and can certainly win games on its own, so that's why it's in there. Cryptic Command is a ridiculous card, and that's the only reason I'm running another 4-cost spell in this deck, is that this card is just so ridiculous. You can counter a spell and draw a card. You can tap their creatures, counter their spell. It seals up the game so nicely that you just can't go wrong with this one. We're not running Chronozoa. I guess this guy can really slowly turn around the game to where you start winning. If the board is clogged up, neither of you can really get through. Most of the time, somebody can at least attack, and if it's not going to be you, then it's going to be the opponent. So I don't know. I haven't really seen this dude do too much, other than just be a flyer that's a little bit less powerful than you'd like it to be. But yeah, I guess it can win the game really slowly, but that's not really what we're looking for with the deck, anyways. And if this guy gets time to thrive, it's probably because you're not really doing the job that you want to do with this deck, and that means the opponent gets time to find answers for this guy as well. We've got Aetherplasm here, 4-cost 1/1. When it blocks a creature, you may return it to its owner's hand. If you do, you may put a creature card from their hand onto the battlefield, blocking that creature. Like, this is a very weird and tricky card, and it just doesn't really fit what this deck is trying to do, which is to win early and fast and stuff like that. Phantom Beast is not as good as the other 4-drops here, and I don't know, you don't really need a 4-cost, but I'm just running these because that's how good they are, Disorient is a bad card, don't run it. Mirrorman Phantasm is weird and tricky. I haven't really seen it do much. I mean, yeah, I guess this mills yourself, and then there's one card that takes advantage of you milling yourself, which is Snapcaster Mage, and there's nothing else in this deck that takes advantage of you milling yourself. Aside from that, this guy, comes back, and that's something, but he's a 5/1 dude for 5 mana, and you have to sink mana into it. I don't know. Seems bad. Leyline Phantom, 5-cost 5/5. When it deals combat damage, return it to its owner's hand. That's just... Ugh. Again, you have to sink mana into that stuff. Mind Control is a very good card, but again, I don't want to play 5 mana spells in this deck anyways. Time Reversal is... I don't see the point of it, so yeah. Draining Welk, I guess you can go that route with this deck. You can turn this into somewhat of a control deck. I mean, you've got the Mind Control, you've got the Draining Welks, you've got the Sphinx of Mogosi, you've got the Royal Elemental, you've even got a Jace's Mindseeker, these are all fine cards, but I think you don't have enough playables to really make this into a control deck. And the early removal, like Avenize, is stuff that requires on you having early dudes. So it's kind of awkward that way, and the aggressive build for this deck is just so powerful that I don't really see a point in wanting to change that. I mean, it's not that I'm a player who extremely enjoys aggressiveness or anything like that, but it's just that I don't see a point in making the deck worse than it could be, So I haven't really even tested or tried the control build for this deck. I just don't see the point in it. But if you want to go that route, Draining Welk, Sphinx of Mogosi is just a really good card. Royal Elemental, all this stuff can be tried. I think Jace's Mindseeker is the worst among the 6-drops, but whatever. So we're not running Temporal Mastery because the odds that you actually get this on a turn when you want to miracle it, and you top deck it and don't start with this in your opening hand, aren't that great for this card. Just if you do the math, a lot of the times when you do miracle this, you don't really get that much out of it, because you want to have a board position, you want to be able to kill them in those 2 turns, and it's just not gonna happen as often as you'd like to with this card. And there's gonna be plenty of games where it sits in your hand and does nothing, because you're never gonna get to 7 mana. So that's why I'm not running that. Well, if you want to be able to get to 7 mana though, it's good to first get to 10 mana and then be able to cast all your cheaper stuff for free. What is this card doing here? Yeah, I'm as clueless as you are. I have no idea. But anyways, that's the build for Mind Maze. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and leave a like on it if you did. And I'll be back with some gameplay for this deck, and don't worry, Winter Swap is coming back as well. So stay tuned. My name has been Nemo. My name will still be Nemo next time. See you then.